Brady, great to have you back. We'll quickly recap here the Wells Fargo Championship. Rory McIlroy playing at a very high level going into this. He's not going to be the favorite at the PGA Championship. That's going to be Scottie Scheffler. But certainly Rory and Scottie are right there at the top.
Yeah, it's really a great storyline that has developed here going into the PGA, Craig. You have Rory just absolutely dismantling Xander Schauffele to get his fourth victory at the Wells Fargo Championship last week. And he looked stunning in doing so from holes 8 through 15, an 8-hole stretch there. He played it an 8 under par while Xander played it at even par. And at that point, the golf tournament was over. But let's not write off Xander Schauffele either. This guy is still a top 5 player in the world. He didn't play that poorly on Sunday. He was better than most of the field. He didn't necessarily lose the golf tournament, but Rory absolutely won it. And it's very interesting that now he comes into Valhalla, the site that he won his last major to date in 2014. It's amazing that it's been 10 years since Rory's won a major, but it was right here at the PGA Championship at Valhalla. And in that year, in 2014, he arrived at Valhalla coming off of 2 consecutive victories, as he has done once again this year. Of course, he won the team event, the Zurich Classic, and now his second straight victory at the Wells Fargo. So a very similar setup for Rory. You've got Scottie, the brand new father. Xander, blowing 54-hole leads at the Players and the Wells Fargo. Brooks Koepka's in the conversation, Jon Rahm. And you know what's cool about this major, Craig? And you can no longer say this about the Players' Championship. The PGA Championship is now truly the very best field in golf. You've got 16 players from the LIV circuit here, no amateurs, 20 club professionals that make up the total of 156. So, 136 players here are pretty real deal guys. And most of them, I would say, you might be 80 to 90 players deep that have a legitimate shot to win this week.
Yeah, and I think, and we'll go through some of the players that you like. And again, we're looking at odds courtesy of Bet MGM. And what I find interesting about this week in particular, not just from the positions that you're taking on some of the players, but also from looking at some of the odds, a lot of the top LIV golfers are finding their way onto the odds leaderboard here with Bryson DeChambeau at 25-1 and Rahm at 18-1 and Brooks at 14-1. Looks a little different to me than it did for the Masters. So why is that, Brady, this week? Is this just a course that is meant for Brooks Koepka or for Bryson DeChambeau? I know DeChambeau played very well early on at the Masters. What's the thought process behind setting these odds?
Yeah, I think it's the golf course, Craig, and it's also the nature of the PGA Championship. If you look at the PGA Championship over the last 10 years or so, it's really become a bomber's tournament. We've seen Bryson DeChambeau finish 4th twice in this championship. Brooks Koepka has won it 3 times. It's really become a tournament that caters to the big hitters, and those are the guys at the top of the odds board here this week. Jon Rahm, DeChambeau, Joaquin Niemann. These guys, Brooks Koepka, of course, not only is a big hitter, but has the history at the PGA. So some of these guys that have made their way over to the LIV circuit, Phil Mickelson, a surprise winner in 2021 and not a short hitter either. So these guys, some of these guys that have made their way over to the LIV circuit, they happen to be very good PGA Championship players and a lot of them very big hitters. So, the Masters is a little bit unique. I think it takes some different skill sets. It takes a lot of creativity and touch, especially around the greens. I think the British Open is a very different test. But the PGA and the U.S. Open are probably the most closely related. And there happens to be a lot of guys on the LIV circuit that have been very successful in both of those championships.
Yeah, and I think that from looking at some of the positions that you're taking is you're buying into the bangers, the heavy hitters this week, because you like Brooks, you like Bryson, Niemann at 40-1, Will Zalatoris, Sepp Straka. And this is like my favorite part of our segment when we talk, because I love when you take these big shots, because a lot of times, I don't think people realize this, is that, Brady, people can take this information, and Will Zalatoris doesn't necessarily have to win, or Sepp Straka doesn't necessarily have to win, or even Niemann, because you can take these players to win the championship. But again, over on MGM and everywhere else, there's top 20 finishers, top 30 finishers. And so you can kind of hedge your way through this thing, can't you?
Absolutely. Sepp Straka makes a lot of sense to me. He's not one of the biggest hitters. He's above average or around there, but he's extremely accurate. And these fairways are wide. When you have narrow fairways, really narrow fairways, it's actually a disadvantage for the shorter, accurate hitters because they're going to miss fairways too. And you know, if the bigger hitter like Bryson is 50, 60, 70 yards past you, if you're both in the rough, Bryson still has the advantage. But when the fairways are wide, the guys that are not accurate off the tee, maybe they're real long, they're going to find the rough. But if you're very accurate, like Sepp Straka, it's okay if you're a little further back as long as you're in the short grass. Zalatoris is not necessarily a bomber either, but his record in the major championships is incredible. I was really surprised to see his price balloon. I got him in the neighborhood of 50-1, and I looked the very next morning on Monday morning, he shot 80 in the final round at the Wells Fargo, and I've seen him as high as, into the 90s to win this tournament. This is a guy that has an incredible record in majors, lost in a playoff just 2 years ago at the PGA Championship, finished second at the US Open, 3 top 10s at the Masters. So I kind of believe that he will show up once again for this event. He started off extremely well at the Wells Fargo and then kind of fell off over the weekend. I think he'll be ready to go this week. But yeah, the bombers, the top 20s, I mean, you can kind of play it the way you want. I think it is going to cater to the cream of the crop here. And yeah, if you want to take some of these shorter shots for a top 10, some of the longer shots for a top 30, I think a lot of these guys are going to find a way to get into those markets and cash a ticket for you.
Can't wait to watch this weekend. Thanks again for coming on, Brady.
You got it.